Hello, young explorers. Welcome to yet another intriguing and fascinating English class. Today, we will delve into Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, a powerful narrative that chronicles his relentless fight against apartheid and racial discrimination, and thus leading to the birth of a democratic South African nation. So, we are going to talk about Nelson Mandela and this narrative, Long Walk to Freedom, that he himself has written. So, the author is itself Nelson Mandela. Okay, so let's just start by seeing some of the inspirational quotes which Nelson Mandela himself has given. So, let's see here. He said once that the brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Secondly, this is also very popular. Freedom is indivisible. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. And you will come across such quotes when we will be going through line by line explanation of this chapter. Okay, and now the next one. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin. So this was against apartheid, a racial discrimination system which used to prevail in the olden times. We can call it now old history because now it is not there anymore. So let's now continue with knowing about Nelson Mandela. So Nelson Mandela, students, he was the first black president. Okay, so he was the one who laid the foundation of a democratic South African nation. Okay, so he was the first black president of South Africa. You can see his year of ruling. Then why did he become the president? This was one of the most major reasons. So he fought against apartheid. Apartheid, it is a social system of racial discrimination and racial segregation where people are discriminated on the basis of their skin color. That used to prevail there in South Africa. So he spent 27 years in jail and prison, working hard for his people to get them freed from this particular system, apartheid. And then in the year 1993, he had even won a Nobel Peace Prize. So he's a Nobel Peace Prize winner. And this chapter is an extract from the first black president's inaugural speech. So we are going to read his speech itself, which he had given when his country became independent. All right, let's now go ahead and move ahead. Okay, so when we talk about the settings of this chapter, this is what the setting is. Let's just discuss once. So the date that they are mentioning, remember that this date is actually really important for you. 10th May 1994, the birth of the nation of South Africa. Okay, second is what is the event? The date we are already aware of. Event is inauguration because he is now the first president, the first democratic president of South Africa. So inauguration as president of South Africa. Then venue is Union Buildings, Pretoria. Just to tell you, Union Buildings used to be the headquarters for South African government. So the presidency, basically the president used to live there. It used to be the headquarters, right? Okay. Then the guest presence, all the people from the neighboring countries and all the people, important people from democratic countries and also rulers of countries were present there. So global leaders, basically dignitaries and military officials of their country as well as other countries, the military officials too were there. Okay, and this was the symbolic moment marking the end of the racial discrimination system of apartheid. All right, so we have now discussed about the setting, about Nelson Mandela. So I hope you would have already got the reference that what are we going to talk about in the chapter. It is going to be an inauguration speech. All right, let's now continue. Okay, so before you read, you should give a read to this. This is taken from your NCERT book only. This is written on the very first page. All right, so this asks, the first one is your question which you should definitely give a try to, and the second one is a brief introduction which we have just discussed. So I would request you to pause the video and give a reading. This is all what we have already just discussed. All right, and also let me know the answer to the first question in the comment box. All right, I hope you would have given it a reading. So let's just give a reading to for the second point. Okay, so have you heard of Nelson Mandela? You would have definitely seen his photos. I'm sure of that. In today's world, everybody would have seen such famous dignitaries' pictures. Definitely, maybe on the internet, or maybe when you would be working on your history project. So Nelson Mandela and his African National Congress, okay, the party, they spent 27 years lifetime, also lifetime fighting. 27 years, students, is as long as one's lifetime. Do you agree? Yes. So they spent a lifetime fighting against apartheid. Mandela had to spend 30 years in prison. Okay, so it was a huge plight, children. Finally, democratic elections were held in South Africa in 1994. This is very important year for the people of South Africa, and also for a lot of people who wish well for South Africa, because racial discrimination ended there. Okay, and Mandela became the first black president of a new nation. In this extract from his autobiography, okay, this was his autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, from where this extract has been taken. Long Walk to Freedom. Mandela speaks about a historic occasion, the inauguration, okay, the inauguration, where he talks about the whole thing, where now they are finally free and they are going to enjoy their freedom, and he actually mentions everything. So that is what we are going to cover, what all he mentions, and how he thanks, and how he is feeling grateful for that very moment which he is now getting to live. All right, let's now start with the chapters reading line by line. So this particular part we are going to discuss line by line, and explanation will be given to you, of course. So before we start, before I explain you, I would like you to pause the video and go through these lines by yourself, and then we will discuss. And this is how we are going to continue the chain of learning. All right, please pause and give a reading by yourself. All right, I hope you would have given the read to it. Let's see. We already know the very first word because we have read it in the introduction also. The very first word which is written here is 10th May. You already know 10th May 1994, the year, the date, the day when South Africa finally got freed. Okay, so dawn meaning the morning was bright and clear. Why bright and clear? Because it is now going to show them new beginnings. Finally, they are entering the new phase of their country's life. Okay, for the past few days, I had been pleasantly busy. Okay, now this is where Mandela says that for the past few days, it has been many days now that I'm already surrounded by people. Besieged, children, it means surrounded by armed forces. But he is not feeling a compulsion. It's not in a negative way. He is saying that I'm pleasantly besieged, meaning that people are there to protect me. People are there to protect the leader of the country. All right. So this is what besieged here means, that I'm pleasantly besieged. I'm surrounded by armed forces, by dignitaries, okay, by famous people, by world leaders and global leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. So I am surrounded by famous people, renowned people, military officials and what not. I am basically overwhelmed by the feeling that our country is about to get free, okay, on 10th May. This is the day of 10th May. Now, so the inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. And this is what Mandela says, that on the South African soil, in the country of South Africa, this is going to be the largest gathering ever. Because before this, we never had such a huge gathering, such a humongous gathering of world leaders. Why? Because it was not a democratic nation before. All right, let's see the second part. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheater. And where did this whole ceremony took place? Here, in a place like this. This is called an amphitheater. So this amphitheater is made up of sandstone, okay, in a lovely sandstone amphitheater formed by the Union Buildings in Pretoria. Children, this is Pretoria is the name of the city where these union buildings were there, and as I told you before also, Union Buildings basically used to be the headquarters for the African officials, okay, South African officials. So for decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and then he goes on mentioning that what are these union buildings in Pretoria? Why am I here? Because this is where our ceremonies are going to take place. Basically, this is the official place where such ceremonies used to take place. The political ceremonies used to take place, and earlier it was ruled and dominated by white people. Okay, white people meaning the Britishers. All right, and now it was a site of a rainbow gathering. Rainbow gathering, children, it is a metaphor. All right, it is now telling that now rainbow of people, meaning different people are coming in of different colors and nations. So you can see that earlier it used to be just white people, but now there is a rainbow that you can see. Why? Because there are varieties of people and different nations and different skinned people basically. All right, this is what he wants to portray here, that with the democracy of South Africa, now this place is not going to be dominated by white. Instead, it is going to be a people's place, right? A democratic place. For the installation of South Africa's first democratic non-racial government. What is the meaning of non-racial? Someone who is not going to believe in apartheid, a government which would be free of racial segregation, a government which would be free from racial discrimination, which they had been suffering from a very long time. This is where their installation of democratic South African democracy takes place. Okay, South African government, the democratic one, takes place here, and this is where the entire ceremony is taking place, which is the Union Buildings in Pretoria. You that, and this is an amphitheater. You can see how the structure looks like. In olden Greece, it used to be the place where they used to have their basic official meetings and their big huge meetings that the king used to have it. All right, let's now continue with the second part. Again, please stop the video and give a read by yourself, and then we shall discuss. All right, I hope you would have given a reading and you would have understood what he is trying to say. Since this is a speech, you can see that the tone, the author's tone is quite formal, right? Okay, let's see. On that lovely autumn day. So, autumn day, why? Because in Africa, during the month of May, it is the autumn season going on. So, on that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied. So, he's saying that I was accompanied with my daughter. So, I was with my daughter Zanani. Okay. On the podium, Mr. De Klerk was first sworn in as second deputy president. Okay. This man, again, this is a man of importance. Why? Because he became the second deputy president, right? So on that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied with my daughter Zanani. Along with that, on the podium, who was there? There was Mr. De Klerk, second deputy president. Then Thabo Mbeki, okay, was sworn in as first deputy president. So Mr. De Klerk was the second deputy president and first deputy president was Thabo Mbeki. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the constitution. Okay, constitution, why? Why would someone uphold the constitution? It actually is a symbol of respect. That when you enter in and when you become a democracy, when you enter being you enter that the list of countries where again you are being called a democratic nation. This is what democratic nations do, that they have a constitution and they go by it. Okay, they abide by the rules of constitution. All right, so this is why he says that I vowed to obey and uphold the constitution, since we are the democracy, and to devote myself to the well-being of the republic. Republic meaning a combination of different people who are basically democratic, who have their rights intact with them. Their rights will not be taken away. This is why it is called the republic. So he says that I pledge to obey the constitution. I pledge to devote myself to the well-being, to the betterment of my own people, of my own country, of my own democratic place and its people. To the assembled guest and the watching world I said. And then he goes on by writing that all the assembled guests, whosoever had come there, he addressed then the watching world, and the world who was watching him, which was watching him, he said that today all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. And this is how he starts by that all of us have gathered here only and wholly and solely for one reason, which is um, the freedom of this country, because it has now freed itself from apartheid regime, and we are now basically democratic, right? This is what he says, that today all of us do by our presence here. So when we are present here, we confer glory, meaning that we bestow, we give, we provide glory and hope to newborn liberty. So this newborn liberty means newly formed South African democratic South African nation, right? So this is a newborn liberty. We have been just liberated from the regime of apartheid, out of the, and also liberated from the white supremacy, okay, out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster. So we have freed ourselves, we have emerged out as a newborn liberty from what? From the claws, and the paws of extraordinary human disaster. Extraordinary human disaster, I hope you already know that the author is giving context to that one regime which I have been continuously taking name of, that lasted too long, must be born of a society of which all humanity will be proud. So now we have become a newborn liberty, and this newborn liberty is it's not usual, okay, it's something special. It's something that special that even the people from different countries would respect it, would be proud of, would be something proud of, and they will feel a feeling of accomplishment when they will get to know that finally South Africa also has been able to achieve and emerged out as a newborn liberty. Okay, so extraordinary human disaster basically here refers to the regime of apartheid too. Okay, so he says that finally we have come out from the regime of apartheid, from the regime of white people who were dominating us through and through. Okay, let's now read the next part. We who were outlaws not so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world. Now this is the interesting part, okay, of the speech. So he says we who were outlaws not so long ago, meaning we who were the ones who were abandoned, who were deserted, who were not allowed, okay, to enter some other nations, to be in contact with other nations. Why? Because since white supremacy was there, we were ruled by white people, so this is why we had no right, and this is why we were outlawed, we were abandoned, we were not allowed to do so. So have today been given the rare privilege, and today now the things have completely changed. Now the tables have turned. We have been given the rare privilege, the opportunity to be the host to the important people of the world, to the global leaders. So basically we have now become the host, the people who were not accepted, the people who were not allowed and permitted to express themselves, to even to wander in their own nation, to even walk freely in their own nation, are finally now being privileged enough to host the global leaders of the country, okay, of the world, sorry, the nations of the world on our own soil. So on our own soil, we don't have to go anywhere else, but we have got the chance, opportunity to host the people in our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having to come to take possession. Possession meaning ownership. So we are happy, we are glad that people from other nations have come to take ownership with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice. So whatever we have done today, we have accomplished getting out of that apartheid regime. We have accomplished finally getting out of that long dark phase of undemocratic and non-democratic government. Now we are finally past that, and this is now going to be a joint celebration, right? Joint celebration, because it is a victory for justice, right? What is justice? Justice is something which is right, and what was right? Apartheid was not right, definitely. So this is a victory against apartheid. It is for peace of the people who are living there, and for human dignity, that human needs to be, all humans need to be respected. It is not just that the few of the communities are going to be respected on the basis of their skin color, while the other few would be left behind, would be abandoned, would not be allowed to host, to live democratically, right? This is what all this actually means. Let's now move ahead, the next one. Okay, all right, please stop the video and give a reading by yourself, and then we shall discuss. I hope you would have read the lines. Let's now begin and go ahead with these lines. We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender, and other discrimination. So this is what Mandela goes on saying, that finally the moment has come where we have achieved our political liberation. What do we have achieved? Political liberation. Emancipation means liberation. So Mandela stresses lay emphasis on the fact that now the moment has come finally where we, the people of South Africa, are finally free politically, not just mentally, emotionally, economically, but also politically. Why? Because we are not going to be under the bondage of any English people anymore. We will not be slaves of poverty. Okay, so we will not be deprived of resources, we will not be deprived of money, we will not be suffering. Okay, neither we will be suffered because of our skin color nor because of the genders. So no sort of discrimination will take place. Okay, so never, never, and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. So see, just again focus, students, that he writes the same word, or he speaks the same word, never, 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 meaning that he wants to lay emphasis on the fact that it will never be repeated, that on our very land we are going to let other oppress us, or we are going to ever be oppressed, neither are we going to oppress anyone else on our land, right? So this is what he says, that never, never again shall it be that. It's this beautiful land, this beautiful of a land, which is full of South African people and various ethnicities. Okay, the no one will be discriminated here ever again. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Okay, and now this is a human achievement. Nelson Mandela's nation and the Union of South Africa has basically got a human achievement. They have achieved something which is so glorious that it could be called an achievement. Why? Because it is the win over injustice, right? It is win over all the battles which all the South Africans were um, facing and fighting for a quite a long time. It was a fight against apartheid, right? So let freedom reign. Reign meaning rule. So let the freedom rule over this beautiful land of ours, and God bless Africa, right? This is what he says. And then he continues and says that a few moments later we all lifted our eyes in awe meaning in surprise. All right, so this means in surprise. So people lifted their eyes in surprise as a spectacular. What is the meaning of spectacular? Spectacular means something which is picturesque, something which is worth watching, right? Which is breathtaking. So a spectacular, a beautiful, breathtaking. Array means arrangement, arrangement of South African jets. So there were South African jets, basically helicopters, troop carriers, rode in perfect formation over the Union building. So you can see that Union building is basically the residence of president or the headquarters of the presidency of South Africa in those days. And all this military procession is taking place. Basically, the arrangement of all these vehicles states what? It actually states the military power of the country. All right. So let's see that they rode in perfect formation over the Union buildings. It was not only, now see how what Mandela is saying, that this entire military procession is not just a display of pinpoint precision. We just don't want to show our perfection, but also a demonstration. We want to show that the military's loyalty to a democracy, to a government that had been freely and fairly elected. Very important, students, that he says that the military is not just to show the perfection of how good military persons we have, how good the military can have the hold over the country, to protect the country, and that we are secure. Not only we are secure, he says that we are also now freely elected, and basically we are democratic now. So it is now we have dictated our history by letting ourselves free from the hands of British or English people. All right, let's now continue. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and police, their chest bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. So he now uh, uh, mentions one more thing, that just few moments before, only moments before, so all the highest officials of the military, their chest, obviously because they are highest officials, so their chest has been bedecked, meaning decorated with ribbons and medals because of the achievements that they have got in while fighting battles, right? So because of fighting battles, so these generals have saluted me and they have pledged or promised me their loyalty, that they will be loyal to this this new freely and fairly elected government, right? I was not unmindful, but he also states the fact that I was not unmindful, meaning that I have not forgotten of the fact that not so many years before, I have not forgotten the fact that they would not have saluted but arrested me. So I still remember the same thing, that these people who are today saluting me are pledging their loyalty to my government. If there were still, if I would have lived in the olden times, I would have still been arrested only. This is what Nelson Mandela says. Let's now continue to the next part of the chapter. Again, I would be leaving you with this part. Please pause the video and read the lines, and then we shall continue. All right, I hope you would have given a read to this. Let's now understand each of these lines. Let's see here, but how the line has started from here only. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and the vision of whites singing Kosi Sikelele Africa and black singing the Dia Stem, the old anthem of the Republic. Let's see here again. So we were talking about how Mandela mentions the military precision and how he says that the military is loyal to the country. It's not just the demonstration of their perfection, but also their loyalty to the newly elected, fairly and freely elected government, right? So then he continues that finally the nation's flag was basically launched for the whole uh, all the people who had came there, who were invited there, all the visionary leaders, the global leaders, and distinguished guests who were there. So, a chevron of Impala jets. Chevron meaning an arrangement which is like this, okay, a striped arrangement or a V-shaped arrangement. And Impala jets are basically the type of jets, the airplanes, right? The aircrafts. They left a smoke trail and of what? Of colors, which are basically all the colors constituting in the South African flag. Okay, so these colors were left in the air so that people will get to know that this is how flag of South Africa looks like. All right. Now, the day was symbolized for me by the playing of two national anthems. Then Mandela says, after the flag was launched, post that two anthems were sung by the people. So the first one is of the whites, okay, and the vision of whites. So basically, two anthems were there. So one was of Africans and one was of the white people. The Africans had this national anthem, Kosi Sikelele Africa, meaning God bless Africa or Lord bless Africa, and black singing diastem, the same thing, right? The old anthem of the Republic used to be this. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised. Despised means hated or to look someone down upon. Okay, so neither of the group knew the lyrics to the anthem because they once hated that group. Because the blacks hated the whites and the whites hated blacks. And you know the reason, right, students? That the whites hated blacks because of the apartheid regime, and the blacks and the whites hated them because of them discriminating their community for whole of their lives, right? Okay, let's see. They would soon know the words by heart, and this is for sure a correct thing, that right now they do not know the lyrics because they had once, despite both of the communities were despicable of other communities, of the respective communities, but sooner in the future they would know the lyrics by heart. On the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth, the white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of social domination against dark-skinned peoples of their own land. And you can now already understand that now he is talking about all these 80 years, that on the day of inauguration, I was overwhelmed. Why? Because of the sense of history. The history was very struggling for the nation of Africa. Why? Because in the first decade of the 20th century, they had their bitter Anglo-Boer War. So basically, it was the war between Africa and England, and also the community of Boer, right? And before my own birth, so basically Nelson Mandela was not even born, and when this war had taken place. So in the first decade of the 20th century, Anglo-Boer War had taken place. The white skinned people, and this is where the establishment, we now know what are the roots, where are the roots of establishment of apartheid came from. See, this is the place where it actually came into existence. It was the Anglo-Boer War, where white-skinned people of South Africa patched up this social system of social domination against dark-skinned people of their own land. Okay, so both of the people were of the same land, and still these white people had established this system that time. Okay, for the first decade of the 20th century. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest and most inhumane societies the world has ever known. And if you would have known about apartheid, children, you would definitely agree with this, what Mandela is saying, that it is one of the harshest and most inhuman things which one can do. And yes, English people did it actually. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century and my own 8th decade, meaning that now we are on the last decade, and also now that I have turned 80, that system had been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all people. So now we have replaced that system with the ones where we are considering and giving the rights to all people regardless of the color of their skin. So there will be no social or racial segregation on the basis of color, right? Okay, let's now go on to this part. Again, please stop the video and read the lines by yourself, and then we shall discuss each and all right. Let's understand these lines now. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people, people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. So now Nelson Mandela was discussing about how people have how English has introduced the system of apartheid, and now how with the struggles of the people of the same land, that old system has been replaced with a newer one where everybody's right will be respected and where no one will be discriminated on the basis of their color. So that day had come through various challenges, okay, by overcoming various challenges through the unimaginable sacrifices. So people have done unimaginable, unbelievable sacrifices. Thousands of my people. Okay, so he's referring to his own people, to his own community, people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. So we can never count or we can never pay the amount of efforts they had put in bringing down this system. Okay, so where we are standing today, it's all because of these people, and he is actually owing his success, the country's success, to these people. I felt that day, as I have so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. So he's saying that I am basically the sum of all the people who had done unimaginable sacrifices to accomplish such a huge target which has brought victory and glory to our country. Okay, that long and noble line ended and now began again with me. So that long line has ended because our sacrifices have technically ended, but now a new set of sacrifices will be there, or maybe now that we are free, so a new line will begin of even more good people, right? I was pained that I was not able to thank them, and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had wrought. Now he is also feeling quite he's disheartened about the fact that all those people who have sacrificed a lot to bring about this change, he is not able to show them that finally your efforts have brought about these changes. So he's pained about the fact that he's not able to thank them. So he's basically very grateful and he has gratitude for them, and he wanted to show his gratitude to them, but he's not able to, as they are not there anymore, right? And that their sacrifices had wrought, meaning brought about. So their sacrifices had brought only glory to the land of Africa. Policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and many people. Do you agree, students? Yes, even everybody agrees in the world right now. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. So he says that that hurt, that pain that we are carrying right now, it's not going to end just like that. Okay, it's going to take years and years for us to go to come over from that pain and come out as a big hearted person, and then just accept and move on in our life. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was it produced. So these children, whenever these kind of situations come in one's life, they actually shapes one's personality. I hope you would agree with this, that more sacrifice, more struggle, unimaginable situations, and unimaginable and unbelievable problems in one's life actually makes one even more determined and strong-willed. I hope you would agree with me on this. So he says the same thing, that this operation, this level of oppression and brutality had even brought more changes. And what are those changes? It had actually shaped some of the personalities which we today know as it has produced people like Oliver Tambos, the Walter Sissulus, Chief Luthulus, Yusuf Dadus, the Bram Fishers, the Robert Sabukus of our time. So basically, just like we Indians have so many freedom fighters fighting, who had fought against the Britishers, who had toiled hard and sacrificed their lives and their blood and sweat and what not to achieve that freedom. The same way, these are the freedom fighters of African land, okay, of our time. Many of such extraordinary courage. So he's actually appreciating, he's being grateful, and he's paying gratitude to them, that these people who have extraordinary courage, wisdom and generosity, that they are like, may never be known again, because the kind of hardships that they have gone through, nobody will ever be going through that. And I hope you will again agree with me on this. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression, and that is true. Depths of oppression to create such heights of character. So, in order to have such heights of character, one needs to go through so much toiling, right? My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil. Now he's mentioning one more fact about his country, that yes, minerally, Africa is a rich country, and you would know this, but I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, and truer than the purest diamond. So, though we are minerally rich, though we have a lot of diamonds in our country settling beneath the soil, but even the people who are Africans, the people who belong to our soil, are no lesser than diamonds. And it's actually very good that uh, he's appreciating all of these people who have brought about success to the land of Africa. Again, let's just pause this video and go through the lines, and then shall discuss. I hope you would have given a read to this. Let's now see. It's from these comrades in the struggle that I learned meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea which is devoted to democracy, or devoted to becoming free from apartheid. I have seen men stand up at to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. So he says such humongous things, such deep things about all the struggle that he and his countrymen have gone through. Let's discuss. So he says that all these friends of mine, comrades, meaning friends of mine, in this struggle, that I learned the meaning of courage. It is because of these struggles that I've understood the meaning of courage, that what is the meaning of courage, and how much of willpower it takes to be courageous in life. And time and again, I have seen men and women. So he has seen many people risking their lives for an idea. That idea was going against apartheid, becoming free and becoming democratic. And he says that uh, he saw so many people struggling and fighting against the odds, against the hardships, but not uh, breaking in, okay, without breaking, without giving up their resilience or giving up their strengths. So this goes beyond the imagination, that how one can be that strong that they can go through anything. So that was unimaginable even for him too. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear. And then he says such a beautiful thing, that courage is not the absence of fear. It is not like that if you not fear anything, you are courageous. It is the victory, it is the winning over your fears. That is what courage means. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear of being afraid. Okay. So no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin. And you know that no one will be we will discriminate people on that basis. It's just that people were told to do or to follow some protocols. This is why they were following such regimes, or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. Okay, so people actually learn to hate. They do not know. No one is ever uh, is ever born to know how hating, what is hating like. Okay, especially how to segregate people on the basis of their skin color. So that hatred is actually to be learned, and if we can learn to hate, and if you can learn to hate, then you can definitely even taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart, and this is for sure that hating requires more effort, destruction requires more effort, construction requires less effort, okay, as compared to destruction. Because destruction is something, whenever whatever is being constructed, now you have to destruct that. Destruction basically requires construction and then destruction, but whereas construction only requires construction, no destruction, right? So, even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, so he says that when I and my fellow prisoners and my fellow community people were pushed to limits, to the limits, and uh, we were made to go through many difficulties. That time also, we would see something like a glimmer of humanity. Glimmer means a shine of humanity in one of the guards who would be doing the most inhumane things to us, right? So he says that when perhaps just for a second it was enough to reassure me and kept me and keep me going. So he kept going when he understood that it is just that people have learned hating, and this is why they are hating on us, and they are making us go through so many hardships. And as soon as Mandela would realize this, he would still continue to go through those hardships in order to emerging out as a winner, okay, no, and not as a conqueror. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never distinguished. Such a beautiful thing, that your goodness is a flame that can be hidden, but it cannot be extinguished, it cannot be put off. So if you are good to someone, if your intentions are good, then your intentions can never be put off, they can always be hidden, okay. But someday, I am telling you, there comes a day when even those intentions gets lit up in that room brightly, and everybody gets to know that how much of a good person you are. And the same happened with the people of Africa, that they were uh, recklessly taking all the hardships that they were being uh, made to go through, and they came out as a winner, right? Okay. So in life, every man has twin obligations. And now the most important line of the chapter start. In life, every man has twin obligations. So he's saying basically every man has two responsibility obligations to his family. The first responsibility is towards his family, to his parents, to his wife, okay, to his children, and he has an obligation to his people. And the second obligation is when you have your responsibility as a citizen, okay, as a citizen of your community, of your people, of your country. So in a civil and humane society, all these two obligations, to these two responsibilities are to be fulfilled, right? Okay, let's now continue to the next slide. Again, we'll be giving you some time. Please pause the video, read through, and we shall discuss. I hope you would have give a reading. So let's see here what the line, how the line continued from here. So he says, in a civil and humane society, each man is able to fulfill these obligations, one which is towards the family and one which is towards the society, according to his own inclinations and ability. So according to one's capacity, one can fulfill these responsibility. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of these obligations. Why? Let's see the reason. So in South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished. So any time you would expect that you can now live normally, you would be punished. And isolated, you would be put in prison. South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ribbed. So in order to fulfill your responsibilities, you will be beaten up, you will be ripped, okay, your everything, you will, your body, your skin will be ripped off, right, with the hardships that you are made to go through. From his family and his home was forced to live a life apart. So if you will think of fulfilling your duty to your community, you will be ripped from your family and your community and you would be sent to prison. Okay, this is also one thing that he says, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. So if, and even if you are not being sent to prison and you are just, you have you have left your family in order to fulfill your responsibility as a community person, as a country, as a patriot, then you will have to live a life of secrecy and rebellion, because if you will live there with your family only, your family will also be affected, even they will be put in prison, right? So that is what they had to do. They had to live in secrecy, they had to rebel from the authorities. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family. So he says that there are two obligations, okay, one is family, one is people, and I never chose my people over my family. But then I was left with no choice. This is says, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, as a brother, a father, and a husband. So I had to eventually leave my house. I had to live in secrecy. I had to live a life of a rebel. And you, if you know, a rebel does not have any proper home. Okay, so they keep on wandering. They are basically like a wanderer. I was not born with a hunger to be free. So I was not looking for freedom. But then something he says, I was born free. I was not looking for freedom, but I was born free as a person, free in every way that I could know, free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast mealies under the stars and ride the broad backs of slow moving bulls, as long as I obeyed my father and abided by the custom of my tribe. I was not troubled by the laws of a man or God. So he says that I was born free, and I had done everything that any free person would do. I had roasted mealies under the stars. Okay, I have cooked food basically. I have ran in the fields of my mother's near the mother's hut, and I have done everything. I have swam in lakes and all of that stuff, he goes on saying. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion. So he says that whatever freedom I had, when I grew up, I understood that it was an illusion. It is just a mirage. There is no such thing as freedom. There would be no freedom given to me. And these all things are not actually freedom. This is what he says. When I discovered. So let's now read the next part. Again, we'll be leaving you with this second last slide. Please pause the video and give a read to it. All right, let's see. So here it starts from, when I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, that I began to hunger for it. So when he understood that my freedom has already been taken away while I was growing up, so basically I'm not a free person, that I began to hunger for it. And if you know, children, if someone is being taken away from you, you get even more you feel even more attracted to that need, right? So this is what he says. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. And he says the transitory freedoms of being able to stay out at night. This is what, as a student, we would want the freedom for, right? That to stay out, to study late, read what I pleased, and go where I choose. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned, meaning longed. I longed. So he longed for the basic and honorable freedoms of achieving my potential. So then he grew up, and then he understood that freedom, which these freedoms, this freedom that I'm getting as a student, that is even not even freedom. Then when he grew up, he understood that he longed for the basic and honorable freedoms of achieving my potential, of earning my keep. So this is what he wanted. He wanted to earn, he wanted to keep whatever he was earning, marrying and having a family, the freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life, and the freedom to not to be put under any constraint, that you cannot, or to be not put under limitations, that you cannot do that, or you cannot go there, or you cannot come here, right? So that was the freedom that he was choosing, right? But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. Okay, so it was not just me who was not free. It was not just me who was obstructed the whole time. It was also my countrymen, my brothers, my sisters who were obstructed. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed. So it was not just my freedom which was stopped and curtailed, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. And by that he means whosoever was black was taken away that freedom, right? That is when I joined the African National Congress. So when he understood that his community, the entire community is going through that struggle of not having freedom, he joined African National Congress. And that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my people. So now the hunger for freedom was not for me, it was for my own people, that I want the freedom for my own people. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self-respect that animated my life. So what commanded my life was the hunger to make my people free, that turned a family loving husband into a man without a home. So basically I became a person, a wanderer, a homeless person, just because I had the thirst which I had to quench of getting free, of getting my people free, that forced a life loving man to live like a monk. So I became a monk. Why? Because it was the freedom, the hunger for freedom, which uh, basically put me through that requirement. I'm no more virtuous or self sacrificing than the next man, but I found that I could not even enjoy the poor. So I'm no more virtuous or self sacrificing. Okay. So I'm not a self sacrificing person. I'm not a bigger hearted person. I'm also a normal individual, and I, just like other people, wanted to live my own regular life. But then so many things were taken away from me and my community that I had to choose this path rather than the one of the normal life. Okay, again I will show you the very last slide now of this chapter, and then we will be done with the explanation of this chapter. Please stop the video and read the lines, and then we shall continue. Okay, so he says, let's see from the last line, that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedom. So he says that it was the hunger for the bigger freedoms that we wanted to achieve. And what was that bigger freedom? To live like a free and normal and regular person along with my community. Not just me, nor neither me nor any of my brothers sisters should be obstructed to go to place, right? So he says that when so I actually he said that I did not really enjoy the small freedom. I wanted big freedom, like the one I shared. I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. So he said that when I know that my people are not free, I was not free either, right? Freedom is indivisible. So children, it is not like that if I am giving you the freedom, I will be taking someone else's freedom, right? That is not the case. Freedom is something which is indivisible, and it should be given to each and every being living out there. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. So he actually explicitly telling this, that if you will obstruct me, you are obstructing my own community, my whole community. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. So it's vice versa. If you are putting obstructions on my people, you are putting obstructions on me. If you are putting obstructions on me, it means you are putting my people, because of the racial segregation which the Britishers used to follow. I knew that the oppressor must be liberated. Also, one good thing he said, that it is not just the oppressed who are getting dominated here or who are not liberated here. It is also the oppressor, which has the oppressor mentality being piled upon him, or he is being told to behave in a certain way, that even he is also not liberated, just as surely as the oppressed. A man who takes away another man's freedom is a prisoner of hatred, right? He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow mindedness. So even that person is also a prisoner of hatred, and even that person is also unliberated, right? I'm not truly free if I'm taking away someone else's freedom. Okay, so he is now referring to the Englishmen, that I'm not free. So he's saying that for the Englishmen, that these people, the Britishers, were not free either, because they were taking someone else's freedom, keeping them in the constant thought of taking someone else's freedom away. Just as surely as I'm not free when my freedom is taken from me. Okay, the oppressed and the oppressor alike are robbed of their humanity. So it is not just the oppressed who is being robbed of their humanity, it is also the oppressor who has to be chained to the bars, and has to be chained under the bars of inhumanity, right? That is what Nelson Mandela wanted to convey with this autobiography of his. I hope you would have understood each and every line of this chapter now, and when it comes to questions, you will be easily be able to write whatever is required. Okay, so now we will meet in the next video, where we will be covering other things of the literature section or maybe grammar section. Till then, continue to learn and keep growing.
Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Till then, don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.